Well, she ought. How was she doing that?
The door was supposed to be locked. Pat, you were supposed to lock that door. Come, I'll turn the other cheek. You turn the other cheek.
One day.
I don't care about that being on there. I guess it is on the track. It is. I guess I'll put it out.
That's what they do, you know, when they take pictures on TV and they're going in. They get right I need to ask for
If we could get some folks to sit down, we'd get started.
Sorry, sir. I'm gonna have to invite him 15 minutes late one day.
You still got one down there. He didn't pay any attention to
Yeah,
me.
I'm quick.
He thinks I'm his wife. Though. Does anybody have anything they need to add to the list or anything that happened this week? I will mention that Linda Livingston, my first cousin Jimmy's wife, passed away last week. And her funeral was yesterday. Other than that, we are most blessed of all this morning. Ann is back there holding the corner down, so the church is not going to come up when the wind comes by. Does anybody have anything they'd like to say? Yes, sir.
Took actually helped pump ventilator for about a day and a half, and then I put him back on. So, I need to keep that thing in my breath.
Good. Ashley Hope. Yes, sir.
Junior Dice, the fellow Anson's got infected liver, high fever.
Well, you know, if we look around on every hand, thank you.
Yes, sir.
If you make a special request, you can get a list of those who are sick that's large enough to read. Now, in her defense, I'll say that she is a conservationist. She's trying to save trees. So this is what she normally puts out, you see. So we appreciate your conservation efforts, believe me. Thank you. Anything else? Anything good this week besides us being here? Nothing. Dan's out of town, and you're in for a treat this morning. Bill's gonna be preaching. And I don't know why he didn't take this. I tried to get him to, but no, I'm lying. I didn't see anything good about that.
Joe, man, W.O. Newman died this week.
Yeah.
W.O. Newman passed away.
That's right. He died last Saturday, 1st of September, and buried him.
Let's remember them. Anything else? Michael, would you mind leading us in prayer to get us started?
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to come here this morning and study your word. We thank you for all the teachers that prepared this morning, studied and got us together, bring it to us, that they reach us, as well as us having extra information we can take out, apply our lives and help others. There's always so much to learn. We ask that you do it all the ones that's been mentioned that's sick, all the ones we have on the list, cancer and other ailments. We need our prayers, we need your healing hand. We ask that you be with them, comfort them. We ask you to do it all the ones that's mentioned. Ones that's lost loved ones, we have several families grieving right now. We ask that you be with them, comfort them. We ask you, as we study, our minds are on you and your son, and what he did on the cross for us, as well as this morning later on as we gather around the table. Ask that our minds stay on the cross. We can remember that sacrifice Jesus made for us. We ask you to forgive us our sins, and we're being turned from in Christ's name. Amen.
If we're not here Wednesday night, Brother Robbie is teaching on the parable of the virgins, and he really missed a good class. But I thought, since we were right there in Matthew 25, that we might just continue and talk about the parable of the talents. Now, what I'd like to do, if it's okay with y'all, I want to skip the first part of it. We all know the parable by heart almost, but I'd like to start reading there in verse 24 about the third man, the third servant. Yeah, Matthew 25, verse 24. And the one who had received the 1 talent came up and said, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. And I was afraid and went away and hid your talent in the ground. See, you have what is yours. But his master answered and said to him, You wicked, lazy slave, you knew that I reaped where I did not sow, and gathered where I have scattered no seed. Then you ought to have put my money in the bank. Pardon me. And on my arrival, I would have received my money back with interest. Therefore, take away the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has, more shall be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who does not have, even what he does have shall be taken away. Throw out the worthless slave into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. I want to begin there. I think, as I say, I think that we all know that we've heard this talked about and we've studied it so much. But I believe the emphasis in the parable really is on the last servant. You know, when I was in high school, I was the manager for the basketball team for a number of years. Gilbert Bars, most of you don't know, you know the name, but don't know him. But I got real close to him. And sometimes we had pretty good teams. And sometimes toward the end of the game, if the lead was close, he'd say, just hold the ball, freeze the ball, don't do anything. You see it in football games sometimes that it'll look like a team is really going great guns, the game plan is working well. And then in the second half, you might see them, instead of doing what they were doing something else, trying to preserve the lead. I heard this referred to one time as playing not to lose. And I think that's a good description, playing not to lose. I think if you look at this, that this one servant whom we shake our heads and cluck our tongues at is afraid, he says he's afraid, and he does the same thing. He plays not to lose. I held on to what was yours. I believe that we in the church do that quite often. Most of the time, in fact, I believe we play not to lose. That we obey the gospel, and as time goes by, that initial enthusiasm, the get up and go that we had kind of goes by the wayside. And we find ourselves living a lackluster Christian life. We need to remember that all of us here this morning we're just like these three servants. We're servants. That means we have a master. That means we're supposed to be doing the will of the master. When we forget that we're servants, then we think about doing our own will, and things don't matter now. Some of the ways I think that we get into this is we have good intentions about doing everything. Someone wrote somewhere one time, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And I think that we all intend to do better. We let life get in our way, and we forget the reason that we should be living is to serve the master. Now, it would be awfully nice if the God of heaven had programmed into us the inability to make decisions for ourselves. But we can make decisions for ourselves. And, there are many ways that we intend to do better, but we never do. And by doing that, we're burying our talent in the sand, just like this guy did. When I get my automobile paid off, I'm going to give more to the church. When I get the mortgage paid off, I'm going to give more. I can't help this person that's in need because I only have enough for myself. You drive by somebody on the street and they've got this out, need help. And we salve ourselves by not stopping and giving that person some money. We say, well, he's probably going to buy cigarettes or beer with me. I know a fellow over in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, in fact, passed away just a couple of weeks ago, that in our opinion, probably wouldn't be considered a very religious person, but never passed anyone on the street, in his car, or walking that was asking for help. He didn't stop and pull out some money and give it to him. I've been guilty of this. We make these assumptions about people. We make wrong judgments about people. And when we, it's sort of like preaching on attendance. The people that need to hear about attending is never here, but it makes us feel good to talk about somebody we know that's not here. Old John should have heard that. That's the way it is about helping people, about intending to study more. Oscar talks about reading the Bible, and How many read your Bible this week? Raise your hand up. Oh, okay, that's good. How many here has ever decided I'm gonna read it more and study more, but didn't? There you go, burying it in the sand. I mean, we intend to. I've done this before, but there's some of you who haven't seen this. Kevin, I'd like you to, if you would, try to get that songbook up here to me.
Try.
No, I said try to.
Okay.
You can't try to, can you? You can only do it or not do it, see? I was talking to the chairman of the journalism department at the University of Central College one day, at University of Central Florida College, and I had talking about some things that I wanted to do. He took his pencil out and laid it down. He said, try to pick it up. I had said one day I'm going to try to do this. So I went and picked it up. He said, no, don't do that. Try to pick it up. And I finally said, hey, I can't pick it up. He said, you'll never do what you're trying to do until you decide to do it. We can't intend to do better. Yes, sir.
There was a radio personality that most of us remember, Paul Harvey. And I was listening to him one morning doing a paper route. And I needed a washing machine, so I did a paper route early in the morning to get us a washing machine. And he had one of his talks was on Let Joe Do It. And he said, America has gotten to the position where we'll let Joe do it. He's more qualified to do it than I am. So we'll just let Joe do it. And one thing that we as Christians have a problem with is let the preacher do it. We sit back and say, well, the preacher is the one that needs to teach us. The preacher is the one that needs to go visit. And whenever somebody's laying in the hospital bed, you go see them, they start rapping. Nobody's got to see them. No preacher, no elder, no deacon, nobody's come up here to see them. And I had one fellow do that to me one day, and I said, when do you visit? Well, I don't go to hospitals, you get sick going there, so I can't do that.
Yeah.
So, we as a society is let Joe do it, but what does the Great Commission tell us? Go and do. And yet, let the preacher do it. He's better suited to do that than I am.
Yeah. Well, in some defense of that, I remember when Charles Murray came here to preach. The first sermon he preached he said, now, just what you said. He said, you have as much responsibility to visit as I do, to teach as I do, to do this or that or the other. And he said, but I realize you're paying me, so I have time to go out and do things you can't do while you're working. And he's right about that. But on the other hand, if we do what Robin's talking about and think somebody else is better qualified to do that, or there's a reason we can't, the devil has won. See? It's not about us. We need to understand that there's a battle going on between the devil over here and us over here. Really, the battle's between the devil over here and the Lord over here. We're in the middle. And he's trying to take us away as fast as he can. And anytime he can get us to feel good about ourselves, he's won. He's won. I dare say that there's none of us here who has not said, I should have, but didn't. I should have, but didn't. Normally, what we do, we say that when we go to somebody's funeral, and we say, I should have before that. Tanya Tucker sung a song, some of you heard me talk about it. Said, bring me my flowers while I'm still living. You can't hear? Best doing this. I'm sorry. You know, I think everybody's supposed to have ears as good as I used to have. So yeah, there you go. But said, bring me my flowers while I'm still living. Because when I'm gone, it's not going to make any difference. If you've got any love, bring it on. And Ann, that goes for those pies you make. You know I like pies. This is a public declaration. We've put the pressure on Ann back there to bring me a pie. And if you bring it, I will eat it. Yeah. We do that. I think another way we do that is we use the church as a buffer between us and what we ought to be doing. Now, you think about this. Anybody here that hasn't heard somebody say, he is a faithful Christian? She is a faithful Christian. Everybody's heard that. What do you think they mean? Go ahead.
What you hear is they show up when the doors are open.
There you go. What's normally meant is that person is there every time the door is open. They're faithful in coming. And yet, I knew he's not living now, an elder down the state that was known as the biggest liar in that county. Think about that. Or think about how when your kids say, you don't do this when we're on the way to church and when we're there, but when we get in the car to come back, you're a totally different person. I sometimes think that we think because we call ourselves Christian and we show up on Sunday morning and maybe Wednesday night, that everything is fine. This servant, I get the feeling that because of his fear of doing something that was wrong, he didn't do anything, and he thought he was okay. Here it is. This one piece of paper. You gave it to me, I'm giving it back to you. Yes, sir.
That fear can come from different places. That fear in the wrong atmosphere can come from your breath.
Yeah.
In other words, I don't want to say this or suggest that because I'm fearful that I'm going to seem like an apostate, a false teacher, or not as strong a Christian.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that's great about this group is generally we're very loving and accepting. And we recognize that we don't all agree on everything all the time.
Yeah. I told some folks the other day, we were talking about brethren, and I said, Chuck Swindoll, who has written numerous books, has a little ditty in it that he's quoted several times, and it's just stuck with me over the years. To live above with those we love, oh, that will be glory. But to live below with those we know, well, that's a different story. And that's the way we are. I'm thankful for that relationship you're talking about that we have here. It's rare. It's rare. Most of the time, some of the things you've heard me say in the right group, I would have been ridden out on the rail, probably tarred and feathered if they could have caught me. But, I guess when you get to be as old as I am, you think you can just say anything you want to and it'll be all right. It's kind of like the book Color Purple. It said, I'm 50 years old, I can wear purple, I can dip stuff and spit in the street if I want to. So that's the way it is. But you think about that. If we don't use what God has given us. It's not that we're not doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it for the Savior. Lord willing, we'll get to that in a minute. Yes, sir.
We've got the good news. You know, if I go fishing on Saturday, everybody at church is gonna know on Sunday if I caught fish or not. And then they're gonna wanna know where I caught them at, so they can go back and catch them some. But, you know, we don't have that mindset that whenever you go pick up a paper, you're wanting to see some news. And good news is better than bad news, and we got the good news, and so we need to be telling people about it.
Well, that is true to no end. But you know, yes, sir.
There's a black gentleman that comes to the bakery on Saturdays. He's a preacher in Lamont. I don't remember his name. He has about a 30-second greeting and invitation he gives to every person he bumps into. And I mean every person. Every person he passes on the way to get into the line at the bakery. Every person standing in front and behind him at the bakery. If he sees someone he knows, like Cal Thomas, he comes over and gives it to us. When he gets his donuts and he leaves, he gives it to every person out the door. Now, I'll never be that person, but he's a living example that it's possible. Everyone loves what he says. Everyone agrees with what he says. No one is put off. No one feels intruded upon. So it's possible.
It is possible. And I think it's a reluctance on our part to have someone have an adverse reaction to what we said or what we say. Harold Dowdy, when he was living, he would say sometimes he would go out over in Jocelyn would go and just knock on doors. Open the door. My name's Harold Dowdy. I preach at such and such, and say, I want to know if you know the Lord. He said one time only, that individual he told that to said, I have been looking for you for so long. Will you please come in and sit down? One time, but it was worth all that effort, you know. If we think that everybody else is worse than we, then we don't see a real need to do it anymore because we're on the right track. You think about judgments, the judgments you make. Somebody is restored, comes back to the Lord. And you say, I don't think he'll last. You ever heard that? Yeah. I remember one time talking with a local preacher. He said that they had somebody that had come back, made it known he wanted to come back to the Lord, and he said, now I think we need to give him about 2 months to see if he really needs it before we ask him to participate in anything that's going on. And I immediately, you know, I must have been an old man then because I immediately said, well, where do you get that? Yes, ma'am.
There was a really bad tornado in Kentucky somewhere.
You're going to have to speak up.
Oh, okay, there was a really bad tornado up somewhere, I don't know. And we had a preacher friend that we get emails from, and he sent out an email, 100 people died in that tornado. It was several years ago. And he sent out an email to all of us that said, as far as I can tell, no Christians died in that tornado. And I found hard, and I emailed him back and I said, how did you know that? And of course it was because he checked all their names and none of them were a member of the Church of Christ. And so he could send out an email that no Christians died in that tornado. I was mortified. Yeah. Well, you know, a lot of this comes because
in my opinion, here we go again, but in my opinion, most of us accept what somebody stands up in the pulpit and says is gospel. We don't go home and see if it's true or not. And we don't look for something to see if it's true or not. And after all, if you're sitting here and you have heard and believed and confessed and been baptized, and you're here every time the door's open, you know, what else is there? If all you hear being preached is faith, belief, repentance, confession, and baptism, or instrumental music, why wouldn't you feel like you're in good shape? Because every little checkbox that's thrown out there is checked. But I can tell you, if you get to digging in this thing right here, there are some areas that most preachers never touch. That things that should be done. We say you're not saved by works, you're saved by grace. But then we read that, you know, this fella was thrown away because of something he didn't do. And that was he didn't work and do what was expected of him by his master. Now, if you look down on below that, I don't know how long it took me reading this before I realized that this story didn't stop with verse 30. This story went right on to the end of the chapter here. It's the story, it's a picture of the judgment. And you've got the king coming in all of his glory. He's coming as God's representative. He's coming as a mediator. He's coming as the one who is going to pass judgment. He's coming as the one who has said, my word, the word I have spoken, shall judge you. So he comes and he separates the sheep from the goats. I remember a little song. I can't sing it, but I forget most of it, but it used to teach the kids in vacation Bible school. I don't want to be a goat, no. But I don't know that we understand what being a goat is to us. Tom Brady is a goat and everybody worships Tom Brady. But here, a goat is what you don't want to be. But the goats are the ones who did not respond to the Lord. Now, I take it they when he said, you didn't do it to me, they were amazed. What do you mean we didn't do it? We did it to me. I mean, they said, you did it to me. What do you mean that we did it to you? Because you were not there. You were not there. You know, I picked Holly up out of the mud and set her down. Jesus says, when you did it to her, you did it to me. Okay? What we don't understand, I think, is that the life of a child of Christ is not here. The life of a child of Christ is out there. And if people can't see it, if people don't know it, if you're not living your life in a way that they can look at you and see the work of Christ in you, then you are not doing it to him. That's what's so important about it. This person who went and buried his talent in the sand, whatever that was, whether it was money or ribbons or marbles, I don't know, whatever he gave him, and did nothing, fits, it looks like, right in this category here. And those who did, were pulled over to the right as sheep. I want to tell you a true story about something that happened here. Way back years ago, the church separated. Everybody's aware of that. And some folks that went off and started another group, some stayed here. daughter of one of the members that stayed here gave a Tupperware party and invited everyone she knew, which included the ladies from the new congregation, the ladies from the old congregation. The ladies from the new congregation all attended the party. The ladies from this congregation didn't attend the party because these people were in error. And they didn't want to be associated with it. Now, if you want to do that, that's your choice. But let me tell you that what happens when that happens, an unintended reaction. The lady who gave the party was not a Christian. And after those whom she had known all of her life refused to come because she invited women from this group, said, if that's Christianity, I'll never be a Christian. And I preached her funeral, and she wasn't. As an old lady. Now that's what happens. And that's what we don't want to happen.
Amen.
How can we, as dedicated Christians who get out in rainy weather like it is today? I know what it is. Y'all all heard I was going to have to class. That's the reason everybody came. And yeah, you don't have to tell me. That's all right. How can we look at ourselves in the mirror and say, Lord, pray, Lord, I have served you admirably today. Hypocrisy runs deep and it runs a lot of ways.
Joe,
Yes.
I think a lot of times when we talk with people about religion or God or joining us in church, the people who have an aversion to that don't have an aversion to God. They have an aversion to religion and the foundation of the church. Somewhere along the line, somebody has, like this lady with her Tupperware party, has rubbed them the wrong way, and now they put everybody associated with that organization of Christianity to be that same type of person.
That is true. That is true. I agree with that. And you know, it's the unintended consequences that hurt us. What do you do about it? You do the best you can. But believe me, if we hide behind a cloak of righteousness and don't share the beauty of the gospel, go and read about heaven. What's been prepared from the foundation of the world, not just for Robin because we know he wants to go, but for all of us who want to go. And all of those out there who don't know that they want to go. See, that's the thing. We had a meeting here one day. A fellow stood up and he just lambasted other organizations. And we all left feeling good. But while that was going on, outside on that sidewalk over there, a man here in town by the name of C.A. Langford, whom I love dearly, was praying with a person who was struggling with the demon of alcoholism, praying for his help from the Lord. Now, I ask you, who went home justified? You never know what's going to happen down the road. You never know what you say today will cause somebody to make a decision years from now to live the right way. But I know this, and I can tell you for sure that doing good will not get us to heaven. The blood of Christ does that.
Yeah.
But not doing good will cause us, I'm afraid, to be in the section that we read about from verse 31 on down to the end of the chapter in a different way, in a negative way. One group is going to destruction, one group going to eternity, eternal life. Yes, sir.
I want to piggyback on something Cynthia said, and then first and foremost, we all talk about retiring, and we all talk about, just want to kick back and do this and that. There's not that word in this Bible. And it's truly our goal, actually our job if we're confessing to be a Christian is that we never ever stop trying to do, it's like Brother Bill said, that preacher you run into, we never stop. Until you take your last breath.
Yes.
But piggybacking on what Ms. Nixon, I have a family member that's identical to the lady you're talking about. He's 83 years old right now. He believes in God, but you won't get him to walk in the building. Something happened to him when he was a child. By one of his family members on that. But he will get upset with you if you keep pulling at him to come. You can talk about the Lord, you can talk with him about it, you can say grace, you can do whatever. But I don't know what happened to him, but I ain't getting out of back in the building.
Well, unfortunately, that happens. And, truth of it is, when I preached that lady's funeral, it was too late for her to make a change.
Amen.
It was too late to do anything about that. I've known families who worship together. We sat up here, one sat here, one sat back there. Went to we had a little Christmas party, went over to Swanee Cove over there. I don't know if it's still in operation or not. We got there and we all had catfish that night. We went in, they were there. Long table in there. One group sat on this end, one group sat on this end, not speaking. As far as I know, all four of them went to their graves, not speaking. Now, you don't want that to happen, and I don't want that to happen. We don't want that to happen. But the thing is, if all of you decide to turn your back on God, I want to go to heaven whether you come or not. Now, I want you to come with me. I do. But I want to be there. It would be awful to have the term wicked, lazy, slave attached to me and to you. We don't want that. We're not going to be perfect. We know that. And I think that we use that as a crutch, that our imperfection gives us permission to be more imperfect. But that's not the way it is. You may think you're not worthy. The God of heaven, your Father, my Father, our Father, sent his Son to die and shed his blood for you. You must be worth something. Now, if you are, if that means enough to you, then the next person you see that doesn't have that hope, you probably need to say something to them about it. Because you want them to have what you got. Or do you? See, that's the thing. Or do you? It's such a wonderful thing to be a member of a God-fearing group, a group that loves each other and puts up with each other. I know some of you put up with me when I say some things that are off the wall, but listen, I have volunteered to be the resident liberal for the group. So, if you want something said, just tell me. I'll say it, and we'll, if Kevin gets mad, then I'll apologize to him. But if he doesn't, we got away with it. But it's such a joy to come and to worship together. To know that if something happened to me, I would hear from all of it. All I'd have to do is say, I need, and you would show up. Yeah, I do. And I thank you for that, for being part of it. I thank you for putting up with me this morning. Our time is up. People are coming in. Thank you so much. I had to pick up.